Happy birthday, Ari. This is a video that we made just for you. Well, I say we, but this part is just me making for you. We're going to do a drawing class today, and there's very few things that I actually know how to draw. So I left all of that stuff to Arnie M, and I am going to handle some letters today. So today we're going to work on a monogram. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a monogram is, but it's generally like one or probably no more than three, but one, two, or three letters, usually sort of placed over the top of each other to form like a little logo kind of thing. Sometimes it's a company initials, sometimes it's people's initials, depending on what it's for. But they look fancy. So I just picked three random letters that I think look really good. So today we're going to work on the letters A, J, and W. I don't know if those are good letters for you, but hopefully we'll have some fun with that. So yeah, just follow along. So what I've done here is I've just like pre-drawn up a little grid here. This is just going to make it a little quicker. If you want, you can pause the video so you can do this up. But basically what we want to do is create a rectangle that is 15 centimeters wide by 10 centimeters tall. It's probably closer to the center of the page. We will be using a little bit of the area below this grid. But for the most part, the design that we'll be doing is going to sit within that. I've just drawn some extra lines on here, on this one here. So this top line is, the top and the bottom here, but these lines here are at 2.5 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, 12 and missed it up, 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5. So these are all 2.5 centimeter sections across. So you should have 6 of those. So each of these sections will be 2.5 by 10 centimeters. I've drawn them a little firmer in here so we can see them on the video. But for the purposes of what we're doing, you'll probably want to keep them as light as you can, just so that you can erase them later, so you can keep it looking pretty. All right, let's get started. So the first thing you probably notice is I've actually drawn some numbers up here. This is just going to be a reference point. You don't have to write the numbers on if you don't want to, but sometimes I'll say we'll start at point 2 or we'll start at point 5, just so that you can know where we're going from and going to. So I've numbered it from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the top, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 all across the bottom. Okay, that all makes sense? The first thing we're going to do is going to grab our ruler after you've drawn up that grid, and we're going to start from the number 3 point. So this is like right in the middle of our page, and we're going to draw a line between number 3 and number let me check this to make sure that we're getting to the right place. Yep, we're going to number 8. So we're going to come across 2 lines here. So again, keeping this sort of light. Generally, I just use the weight of my pencil when I'm doing these guidelines. But again, for the purposes of this, I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to go from 3 down to 12. Oops. It's a little awkward because the camera is blocking my view and my hand on this side here. Whoa, focus. Okay, we're back. Does that work? Oh, there we go. Okay. So we've got a little upside down, no, not upside down, like a little tent style shape here, between 8, 3, and 12. Perfect. The next thing we're going to go from 1 to 9. So we go from 1 down to 9. Just do that. And from 5 to 11. Just like that. So this one's not going to form an arrow, obviously. So you can probably even see the start of the shape. So the top one's the A, the bottom one's going to form the W. Now you can probably see already that if we go W, that goes back up to the top, we're going to have some points overlapping, which probably wouldn't look terrible. But we're actually going to do this a little more fancy than that this time. So For the purposes of this right now, what we're actually going to do is what we want the lines that go up to form the center to be parallel to the A strokes here. So what we're going to do is, if you actually draw another light line between 9, go across to, so we're going to go up to 4. This needs to be super light because we're only going to use part of this line. Very light in like that. And from 11, go over to 2. That will give us a crisscross in the middle. So this will form the basis of our W. Now what we're actually going to do is we're going to come down and go up, and we're going to wrap around behind the A at the top. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to measure down 1 centimeter. So I'm going to measure on the side over here, 1 centimeter down, and over here 1 centimeter. I'm going to draw a line across here. So this is actually going to form the top of our W. So you can sort of see in here, it's going to come. The W is going to come down here, up, across, down, and back up here. So essentially, we've created our little outline here. Now, the next part here for me, the easiest way for me to do this is to we're actually just going to add some thickness to these letters now. So our points on the bottom here, both of these points here and the top here, are going to be sharp points, and they're going to be on the outside curve. So when we're drawing our thickness, we're going to add those to the inside of these lines here. So if you happen to have a clear ruler like this one, where you can see the divisions through here, what I would be doing on this one is, you can see like there is some really long lines. I'll come down here and where you can see there's some long lines here. There are some medium lines, that these ones here, and there's some short lines. So the quickest way to measure some thicknesses of lines is if you actually line up the bottom of the lines. I don't know if you can see it on the thing here, but if you line up this line here with the points, this point, this point, this point, this point, it creates like a nice even parallel line all the way down. But assuming we don't have that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to just create half centimeter thicknesses here. So again, we're going to come back to the side over here. We're just going to start over here. We're going to mark off half a centimeter there, and half a centimeter there. And we're going to do another line down here. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because all these other lines are on angles. So to measure the width here, now to create a line on this line here that is half a centimeter thick, we don't want to actually measure it horizontally, because when you turn it on an angle, it's going to be thinner than half a centimeter. So what we actually want to do is we want to turn our ruler so that it's completely perpendicular. So this one is a little easier to see, so because I can see that the line is lining up with the thing here. But just try your best. Try and get it so that the line down here and your ruler makes a 90-degree angle. So what we want to do is go to the top of the line, get it as perpendicular as we can, and mark half a centimeter. Come down to the bottom and do half a centimeter, and then we're going to connect the dots. Just like that. And we can keep doing that all the way around. So we need to do the 4 lines of the W and the 2 lines of the A. things like this. Those fancy YouTube videos would have a time lapse of this part, but I know I don't know. I don't know how to do that straight using my phone. So this is, we get to just enjoy the sound of the pencil scraping across the paper. And I have a little thing on my page which is annoying me. Up here. So we've got our 4 lines for our W. Now we'll do the A. And this one here. Okay, so you can see this is, you can already probably see it starting to form over here. So the next thing that we're going to do in here is we're going to add our J. Now, because a J isn't as geometric as these, we're actually going to use a little bit of a script in here. So one of the things that we want to do is try and plan this out so that we're utilizing the gaps a little bit here. So what we're going to try and avoid is having, we want to be able to see the line coming through sections, like big sections, like this big circle in the middle. We'll have it come back through this part in the middle, we'll come down here. But for what we're actually going to do is the shape of the J that we're going to use is something like, you probably can't see it there. Let me try it this way. The shape of our J that we're going to use, something like that. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try and do it a bit darker. Like that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to fit it in here, and this line here, it comes down here, is going to be parallel to this line of the W. Because it's script, it doesn't matter so much. But the first thing we're going to do is try and find about a midway point between this line that's coming up here and this line's coming up here. Now these aren't parallel, but we want this line to be pretty much in between those two. So just roughly what I would do first is just draw a rough line down here like that. That is pretty close to halfway between this line and this line here. It doesn't have to be exact. We're going to thicken this up later. Now what we'll also do is we're going to do a line that comes pretty much straight through the middle here, through the middle of that thing. So we've got, it's almost like a 7 we've created here. So once we've got that rough in there, we're actually going to add a little bit of the variety. So we're going to add a curve to the top part here. We're going to dip it in the middle, and then we're going to come down. So we're going to start in this little gap over here. Just curve it around. Now this part is a little bit of, you're going by feel. So try and keep it as natural of a flow as you want. I tend to find if I try and do swoops in larger lines, they feel a little bit more natural. But just play, even if you do it a few times on another piece of paper, just to get the feel that you want to try and do, it'll help a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here. We're not going to stay with this line all the way. We're probably going to break about here to start curving. But what we're going to do is we're going to loop around here in between 0.7 and 8 down here, come up through the middle and back down and around and end up back in the middle somewhere. So we'll follow this down. So again, I try and do this. I'm being restricted because this is as far right as my hand can go over here, but I'll try my best. Come around here. So what we want to try and do is create a little bit of symmetry here, especially sort of with our lumps on the side here. This one here coming around, and this one over the other side. So try and keep the amount that's on this side about the same that's on this side, and that will help it feel a little bit more balanced. So once we have our basic shape there, you can sort of see that. You can edit it, you can play with it, just erase it, start again if you want to. But once we've got that, we are going to just add a little bit of thickness here. So this one is a little bit more on whatever you feel, but I would like to do this in mine to be quite a lot thinner than these other ones, so it sort of stands out a little bit more. This is also going to be black when we're done. So what I like to do is I will just try and pick a thickness that I like on one of the straight sections. So I'll try and just draw a parallel line down here to get to where I'm happy with what I think the thickness should be. So that's about right. So we want to actually make this the thickness of the line all the way around. The hard part is keeping that consistent. So what I like to do is I just tear off a little piece of paper, whatever. This is grid paper, but it doesn't really matter what you use. And what I'll do is I will draw one line here. Oops, didn't mean to do that on our actual drawing here. I'll put it up against here, and then I will, hopefully you can see this, draw to show the width of this line here. So now we have a little piece of paper. Oops, trying to unfold this corner, which has two lines. So what you can do is you can just put this wherever you want on the page and mark, do a little mark, move it down, do another mark, and you just keep moving this all the way around. I find especially on the corners is the parts like over here and over here are the places where you tend to either get really fat or really thin naturally. So if you measure it all the way around, it'll help to keep that consistent. You'll end up with like something that looks a bit like this, and then you can just sort of play dot to dot a little bit. It doesn't have to be super exact, but the more points you can put there, the more consistent that's going to be, and the nicer the finish is going to be. You can adjust slightly once we're penning this in, but the closer we can get it now, the less fix work we have to do. So we're going to come around here, add some thickness like there. This there, this there. Make sure that you're also always turning this piece of paper to follow the curve too. Because again, we have to make sure that the markings are staying consistent in width. So you get the picture there, and follow it around the top section as well. And Okay, so we've got our J that's in the middle there. So now we get to add some of the flourishes to our A and W. So what we're going to do first, we're actually going to flare out the outside of the bottom of the A, and we're going to flare the inside of the top of the W here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take this line here and actually want to start at point 2, and what we're actually going to do is create a curve that joins back down here. It doesn't overly matter how far you dip down, but you want it to be like a nice round curve. So this one for me actually joined the curve about in line with the bottom line here. So if we follow this line across, it's about here. This might be a little bit of trial and error, this part here. And this on this side here, we actually want to draw it like a light line, which is approximately the same width as this line on the outside. And from this side, we actually just want to go to there on this side. Make sense? So the same on this side. So we start at the point here. And just remember to keep this light until you're happy. And then we're going to draw a parallel line here about the same thickness again as this one. And we're going to curve that one out. So we've got some nice curves on the top there. Now the bottom of this A, we're actually going to curve all the way to 0.7. So this one is a lot more of an open curve because it's on the, I forgot my math terms, whether it's acute or the obtuse side. Anyway, it's on the big open side here, and the same on the other side. This one's going to be a little harder for me because I can't get around there very good. Something like that. On the inside, again, similar to the last one, we're going to draw a guideline here, do an out, a little guideline, and do an out. Nice. So we've got our little flares there. Now the next thing we want to do is actually draw a little guideline, a rough guideline that comes straight up the middle of this W and straight up the middle of this line here. Doesn't have to be exact, it's just approximate. And the same for the bottom ones down here. Down here. And down here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to curve these kind of like hearts back to the center line here. So that this one here comes down like that. Like that. And this one here goes like that. Doesn't overly matter if they're not perfectly even, but the closer we can get them, the cleaner it's going to look. So we want to make sure we actually give it a little bit of round. We don't want to go too flat with these because you'll see why in a second. And this one in here. Okay, so that's looking really good. Next thing we want to do is right at this point in the middle, we actually want to draw a circle, or an oval is probably closer, like this, which does not touch the sides here. So we want it to be in a little bit here. And we want a similar, well, as close as we can to exactly the same circle here. And we want to make sure that it doesn't quite close, like it hits the thing, but it doesn't quite close here. Same down here. This one's probably going to be a little bit bigger, which is fine. Just try and keep it consistent on both sides. And you'll see why in a second. So once you've got that, you can take our eraser, and we're actually going to erase that little middle section up the middle there. So what we should have, I know it's probably hard to see on here, we're going to have a shape that looks like this. it's going to look something like that. Okay, does that make sense? So we've got, so it kind of looks like this is rounded, this is rounded up here like that. So we've got that on the top and on the bottom. The big side on the top is flaring in, the big side on the bottom is flaring out. Okay, now it's time to work out where our overlaps are going to be in this drawing here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to not worry so much about the J for now. I'm just going to weave that in and out later on. But the first thing I'm going to do is I want my point up here to be in front of this part, this cross section up here. So I'm going to take my pencil and just firm in a little bit. Now we'll probably use pen later on, but for now we just want to make sure that which lines are in front and which lines are behind. So take this, firm that in. Now this side is actually going to come in front, and generally what these lines will do is they will go in front of one line and then they'll go behind the next line. In front of a line and behind the next one, in front and behind. I think I firmed that one in a little too far. So actually this is going to be a lot cleaner if you use a ruler still, again with these lines. But so you can see this line here is coming up and going in behind there. You'll see a little bit poking out from under here. And actually you'll see a lot, no, actually the whole thing's going to go behind. So this is going to come down here, like that, and this is going to come in like this, and this is going to come across the middle, and the left side is going to go on top of the right side. Cool, so you can start to see that how this is forming. So it's kind of weaving in and out here. Now, the one thing we haven't got in here yet is our crossbar of our A. So the reason we left this blank is because we want to just place this at a place where it feels nice in terms of the rest of the design. So we don't want it to be exactly on the cross point here because we want it to be able to weave and cover. And we don't want it to be too low because we don't want it to be interfering with the bottom of here. So I would probably put it right in the middle here. So however you want to measure this to make sure this is a horizontal line, do that. I'll probably measure it from the sides. Let's draw a line across, see if that's going to interfere with anything. It looks pretty good. I'm going to measure up. Oops. Going to measure up 5 millimeters and 5 millimeters. Do that across, and we're actually just going to start right from the middle. Just do a little dip down here like this. So now what we actually want to do is have both of these crossbars go behind the A crossbar. So these will come both down here like this. The crossbar is going to go across here. This. Oops. Okay. Like that. So we can see how this is forming here. Now we want these to go behind the crossbar of the A, down to the point on number 9, and come up in front of the A down bar, so on both sides. down here like this, and down here, and down here. Now, all we need to do is just firm in the A line here. So this is a little wobbly on a funny angle, so you just have to bear with me. Carry this down here, like that, and carry this down here and this down here. Now you can see how it's looking from this point, because we've firmed in most of the lines that we're going to, pretty much all the lines we're going to use except for the J here. We want to just go and use our eraser and just clean things up a little so we're not getting confused by any lines in here. So don't worry too much if you leave some. We just want to just make it a little clearer to see what lines we're using and which ones we aren't. So this will help when we go to pen, because we don't want to make any mistakes with our pen lines. Now I probably won't go through the whole process of penning this, but I'm sure you will do a great job on that. So once we have the rough outline of where we're going here, and there's this part here, and down here, okay, so we can see it a lot clearer now. Now what I would do is I would actually pen the A and the W in, but leave the J in pencil for now until you're all done with that. Leave them as just outlines for now, but then work out how you want the J to go in front and behind. So the reason we're going to make this solid is because we can actually color over the top of the lines. So you may say, okay, let's say this part comes behind this one. So I'm just going to erase this part here. So it starts behind here, it comes around and it goes in front of here, of this group here, but it goes in and behind. So we're going to erase this one here. So you can see it comes out, it comes in front, it goes behind this section here, comes out, comes back in front of this section here. Maybe it goes behind this one, so we can erase this one here. Comes around. You can work out if it goes in front or behind this little tag here, if it even overlaps here. And maybe we'll come, we want it to come over this one, so we'll maybe come underneath this section in here, underneath there, over this one. The other thing I could sometimes do is just do a little shade, so I know it's going to go over the top. Go under this one, come through here, come over this one, maybe go under here. So it's basically going again, under, over, under, over. And come behind here and finish up here. So when you go through, color it in. You can actually, I probably wouldn't color it in with a pencil necessarily, just because you're going to have to, you've pretty much already defined where you want the marks to be. I would just start, if you've already penned the A and the W, just go through, and I would start with an outline first though, but then just go through and start coloring this in like this. Don't go too fast or you'll make a mistake, which inevitably happens when you rush some of these sort of things. You have to make sure that you're being consistent with some of those things. So over, under, over, under, over, 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 Comes around here, it goes over here, comes around, goes under this one, comes back here. And that's basically it. Then you can go through, just erase all of your pencil lines, and you have a really nice monogram. Now, generally what I would do is, because we want to define which one's the A and the W, I would usually add lines to one of them. So just pick one, and what I would do is try and keep them consistent. So whether it's by using a ruler and just making them all horizontal lines, sometimes I'll do vertical lines. It probably just depends, but if you see, I'll just do this really roughly and really quickly. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You don't even need to use any lines at all if you don't prefer this way, but I really like the effect that it makes. You can also just color them different colors if you want. A monogram traditionally